Hello and welcome. It's March 3rd, 2026, and 6 hours ago, everything we thought we knew about the laws of orbital mechanics was shattered. NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies just issued a Level 5 alert regarding something they've been tracking for months, 3I Atlas. But we're not talking about a minor course correction or a simple anomaly. This is something far more sinister, something with a probability of natural occurrence of 0. I repeat, 0%. For the last 6 months, astronomers have tracked 3I Atlas as a single massive object hurtling through space at incredible speed. But then, at exactly 8 UTC this morning, something unprecedented happened. The Deep Space Network in Goldstone, California, picked up a massive spike in radar cross-section. What we thought was a comet breaking apart under normal thermal stress was not just breaking apart, it was splitting. But not in the way we've seen comets break apart before. Comets break apart all the time due to tidal forces, solar heating, and chaos in the vacuum of space. This wasn't that. This was different. In the span of just 14 seconds, 3I Atlas split into exactly 50 distinct pieces. Let that sink in for a second. This is not just fragmentation. This is something much more disturbing. Normally, when a comet breaks apart, its fragments drift apart, slowly, like crumbs falling from a table, chaotic, disorderly, entropy in motion. But the data we've received suggests the opposite. These 50 pieces didn't scatter randomly. They ejected at high velocity, then stopped, stabilized, and then they formed a geometric array. Think about that. 50 massive objects, each about the size of a city block, moving in perfect synchronization, maintaining a rigid formation 240 million kilometers away from Earth. Nature doesn't organize rocks into a perfect grid. This isn't something that happens naturally, and it's certainly not something we've ever observed before. I spoke with colleagues at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics this morning, and let me tell you, the mood in that room was not one of excitement. It was utter silence, because when you run trajectory models for these 50 fragments, you see something terrifying. They aren't heading off into deep space. They've altered their inclination, their velocity. Every single model shows that they are now on a direct intercept course with Earth's upper atmosphere. And that's not the worst part. No, the worst part is this. They're not all aiming for the same spot. The telemetry suggests they are spreading out, fanning out across the Earth, targeting different latitudes, different longitudes, different continents. This isn't just an anomaly anymore. This is not something random. This is a deployment. And we need to figure out exactly what just happened. To do that, we have to look at the exact moment of the split, the moment when everything changed. The data we've been receiving in the last few hours paints a picture that defies the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. It started at 14:15 UTC, March 2nd, 2026. NASA's Deep Space Network, specifically the massive DSS-43 antenna in Canberra, was tracking the Doppler shift of 3I Atlas. For months, everything was clean, one solid, rotating body. But then, in a matter of seconds, the signal fractured. It didn't fade. It multiplied. The single radar return split into 50 distinct high-intensity echoes. At first, my reaction was skepticism. Could this be a glitch? Could it be some instrumental error? Maybe a software anomaly? But what happened next forced us to rethink everything. NASA's Goldstone Solar System radar confirmed the split. ESA's Gaia spacecraft, which measures the precise positions of billions of stars, independently verified the shift. The AMA array in the Atacama Desert in Chile cross-referenced the thermal emissions and came to the exact same conclusion. 3 independent sources, 3 different methodologies. The result was the same. We are not dealing with a glitch. What we are seeing is a physical event taking place 240 million kilometers from Earth. But here's where it gets strange. Think about how comets break up. We've seen this before with Shoemaker-Levy 9. The pieces drift apart slowly, chaotically, due to tidal forces or solar heating. They're irregular. Some are big, some are small, and the pieces slowly follow their original path. It's messy, chaotic. But when we look at the data from 3I Atlas, things look entirely different. Anomaly number 1, uniformity. The radar cross-sections for these 50 pieces are not random. In fact, they are nearly identical. We're looking at 50 objects, each roughly 300 meters in diameter, with a tolerance of just 5%. Nature doesn't create perfect, identical fragments. Rocks don't break into 50 exactly the same pieces. This suggests manufacturing, not disintegration. And anomaly number 2, the formation. Normally, when an object breaks apart, the pieces drift. They follow the path of least resistance. But just 2 hours after the split, tracking data showed something that defied all expectations. The pieces stopped drifting. They stabilized their rotations and formed a perfect geometric array. Picture a net cast into the ocean. The weights of the net spread out evenly, equidistant from each other. That's what we're seeing. 50 objects in deep space, perfectly arranged 4,000 kilometers apart. Let that sink in. To organize debris into a perfect grid requires energy. It requires thrust. It requires a feedback loop where each object knows the position of the others and adjusts its position accordingly. But rocks don't talk to each other. Ice chunks don't have sensors. So what's going on here? And then there's anomaly number 3, the vector change. This is the data point that has both the Pentagon and the United Nations on edge. Before the split, 3I Atlas was on a hyperbolic trajectory, heading on a path that would have safely passed Earth, perhaps grazing our orbital path, but posing no risk of collision. But at 1730 UTC, something happened that changed everything. The entire grid of 50 objects, which we are now calling a swarm, did something that shouldn't be possible without some sort of propulsion. These 50 objects, all moving as one, altered their velocity by 3.4 kilometers per second. This sudden change in speed is what astrophysicists call delta V, and to achieve such a drastic change in velocity, you need a tremendous amount of force. There were no exhaust plumes, no outgoing jets, no solar sails. The momentum change happened instantly, with no visible means of propulsion. This was a course correction. I ran the numbers myself, using the orbital parameters released by the Minor Planet Center. Normally, when you plot the path of a comet, it's a simple line, a smooth, predictable path through space. But when you plot the path of this swarm, it doesn't look like a line. It looks like a cone, a wide, encompassing cone that intersects directly with the rotation of our planet. The math is unambiguous. These objects are not just grazing Earth, they are heading directly for us, and more specifically, they are targeting specific coordinates. This is not an accident. This is intentional, and it gets worse. When we analyzed the spectroscopy of the 50 objects, what we found was something even more disturbing. Normally, comets are made of a mixture of ice, dust, and rock. But the spectrographs from 3I Atlas didn't match any of these materials. Instead, we found signatures of highly refined metals, specifically titanium, along with unfamiliar alloys that can absorb radar waves. This explains why these objects were so difficult to track initially, because they didn't behave like regular comets. Titanium does not form naturally in deep space. To get titanium in these concentrations requires a manufacturing process, a process we know humans use, not nature. This is the point at which the whole theory of 3I Atlas being a natural comet starts to fall apart. We are no longer looking at a comet, we are looking at something engineered. And just when we thought we had seen it all, the Deep Space Network picked up something else, a signal. If you remember a few months ago, we detected a 2-3 second pulse coming from 3I Atlas. Everyone dismissed it as background noise, perhaps from a pulsar. But at 22:15 UTC, the 50 objects began transmitting simultaneously, but they weren't transmitting to Earth, they were transmitting to each other. We detected a high-frequency burst, less than 4 milliseconds long, jumping from object to object in a perfect sequence, cascading through the swarm in less than a second. This is a peer-to-peer network. They're syncing their clocks, sharing telemetry, coordinating their arrival time. Let that sink in. These 50 objects are communicating with each other as if they're coordinating something. They're not rocks, they're machines. And at this point, it's impossible to deny the evidence. We're looking at something that was intentionally sent here. The question is, why? As a physicist, I rely on evidence. And the evidence we're looking at now is overwhelming. 3 separate anomalies, uniformity, formation, and the delta V all point toward one conclusion: these objects are engineered. But it's not just the physical evidence that's troubling, it's the timing. Why did these objects separate just now when they were within striking distance of Earth? Why wait until now when they are so close? If we analyze the current trajectory and speed, we can see something terrifying. These objects aren't slowing down. In fact, they are speeding up. And their arrival time coincides perfectly with a specific orbital window. We have 36 days until these 50 objects enter our atmosphere, and based on their current formation, they're not going to burn up. They're designed to survive re-entry. The real question becomes, what happens when 50 coordinated metallic objects, each the size of a city block, enter our atmosphere at Mach 25? The shock wave alone would be devastating. But I don't think they're just impactors. I don't think these are weapons, not in the traditional sense. What happened next gives us a clue. At 23 UTC, just 1 hour ago, the lead object, Probe Alpha, did something that made the astronomers at the European Southern Observatory gasp. It stopped accelerating, it turned around, and it pointed its primary sensor array directly at the one thing in our solar system that should not be of interest to a rock, our satellites. This is where everything we thought we knew gets turned on its head. These objects, which we assumed were simply heading for Earth, aren't targeting a random impact site. They're targeting our infrastructure. Specifically, they're targeting our satellites. This changes everything. The implications of what happened next are absolutely staggering. At 1:14 UTC this morning, the Green Bank telescope in West Virginia intercepted something extraordinary. It wasn't just noise. It wasn't a random signal. This time, we intercepted the actual content of the transmission, and what we received has no precedent. The signal was not just a random series of numbers or a greeting. It wasn't even a mathematical sequence like prime numbers, which we assumed first contact would look like. What we got instead was something far more unsettling. The signal from Probe Alpha contained a perfectly matched encryption protocol for the GPS constellation. Let me put that into perspective. Cracking military-grade encryption would typically take weeks, maybe even months, for the most advanced supercomputers, but these objects, they cracked it in milliseconds. They didn't just listen to our satellites, they hacked them, they logged in. They didn't just tap into our systems, they gained full access. If this is a natural phenomenon, then I might as well be the Queen of England. Nature does not hack satellites. Nature does not understand TCP, IP protocols. But here we are. If these objects can access our GPS systems, the consequences are catastrophic. Imagine if they were to override every GPS signal on Earth, every financial transaction, every flight path, every power grid all suddenly out of sync. The chaos would be unimaginable. In response to this, the Pentagon did something unprecedented. They took the entire GPS constellation offline for a maintenance reboot, something that has never happened in 30 years of operation. The fact that they took this action speaks volumes about the scale of what we're dealing with. But what I'm about to show you in the final section takes this situation to a whole new level. Here's the final twist. Probe Alpha, the lead object, transmitted one last piece of data, a set of coordinates, and these coordinates were not in space. They weren't targeting some faraway planet or star. They pointed directly to a location on Earth. When we plotted those coordinates, we were stunned. They didn't point to a military base. They didn't point to a city. No, these coordinates pointed directly to a single location on Earth, the South Pole. Specifically, the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory in Antarctica. Let me explain why this is important. The Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory is one of the few places on Earth capable of detecting high-energy particles from deep space particles that could come from some of the most violent and energetic events in the universe. So why is this important? Why would these objects, if they are indeed a form of intelligent machine, target this specific facility? The answer is simple and terrifying. They are blinding our eyes before the main event. The Ice Cube Observatory is one of our most critical scientific instruments for detecting potential deep space phenomena, and if these objects are targeting it, it could mean they are disabling our ability to see what's coming. And that, my friends, changes everything. Now, let's summarize what we know with certainty. We have 50 objects, each composed of refined titanium alloys. We've witnessed non-gravitational acceleration that defies everything we understand about astrophysics. We've intercepted a signal that cracked military-grade encryption protocols and successfully decrypted GPS systems. And as of 3 UTC this morning, these objects are on a collision course with Earth's upper atmosphere. We're not guessing anymore. This is not a natural event. This is not a freak accident. These are machines, intelligently designed, and they're headed our way. The question that remains is this: why the South Pole? Why the Ice Cube Observatory? Is this the beginning of something hostile, or is it something else entirely, perhaps first contact? In 36 days, we'll know for sure. We'll have visual confirmation of what happens when these objects hit our atmosphere, and by then, we will understand the true nature of this event. But for now, the world waits. As I said, we have 36 days. The telescopes are trained, the detectors are live, the data is streaming in, the world is on edge. And the question remains, what is 3i Atlas? Stay tuned, because whatever happens next will change everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. Subscribe and share to stay informed. Time is running out.